Hi friends, Apostle Price here. This year we are celebrating 35 years of Ever Increasing Faith Television. We are still walking by faith. During this year we will air some of our most popular classic series from years gone by. Remember, you have made it happen for the past 35 years. I appreciate your loyalty. Stay with us and enjoy my classic teachings. Get involved. Visit faithdome.org for more details.
From Los Angeles, California, Ever Increasing Faith, with pastor and teacher Dr. Frederick K.C. Price.
Welcome to Ever Increasing Faith. Remember these words from the book of Romans, chapter 10, verse 17. So then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. Well, praise God for another day and for another privilege and opportunity to share with you the living Word of God. Let's turn in our Bibles to the book of Proverbs, chapter 22. Proverbs chapter 22. And while you're looking that up, I will make my usual pre-teaching statement. We are teaching on the subject of the Christian family, and as the title implies, we are going to be talking about family life, the structure of the family, the responsibility of family members within the framework of the family. And we're going to be looking at it from the standpoint of biblical perspective. From the biblical perspective, I should say, from the standpoint of how God instituted and intends for the family to function. There are two views of family life. One is what I call the world system view, the way the world does it. And then there is the biblical perspective, or the way that God ordained for the family to be operated. We're going to be talking about the Christian family. Now, as we talk about family life, we'll talk about the husband, we'll talk about the wife, we'll talk about parents, we'll talk about children. We'll talk about the interpersonal relationship of a husband and wife, because that will create the kind of atmosphere in the home that the children can grow up in, is the atmosphere that's between the husband and the wife. Now, in talking about the relationship of husband and wife, we will eventually get to a point where we will be talking about the very interpersonal relationship of a husband and wife, and that will lead us, of course, to the subject of sex in some form. Now, because of being a pastor and having been married a number of years myself, there are some things that I've noticed and observed over a period of time, talking with people that are divorced, talking with people that are contemplating divorce, talking with people that are separated, talking with people that are planning to get married, talking with people that have been married. You learn some things just by standing on the corner and watching. And so there's certain things that I've noticed that seem to be common among all marriages that have ended up on the rocks. There seems to be a commonality among them in terms of the kinds of things that impacted upon that marriage and caused it to go on the rocks. And so as we approach the end of this series, I will be dealing with 4 areas that I call the biggies. 4 areas that I have noticed that seem to be prevalent always. When there's a divorce, the 4 things somewhere show up among all of the things that had to do with that marriage going on the rocks. So I've extracted those 4, and I use them sort of as guidelines to deal with. And I feel that if those can be dealt with adequately, then anything else can be handled. But these are what I call the big ones, the big issues. One of those is sex and the relationship of the husband and wife. Now, I know that there are a lot of people, or some people, I should say, that have a difficulty with the discussion of sexual matters in a public, open type forum like this. So I'm giving you forewarning so that if you do have a problem with this subject, sex, then you can turn off, you can look at something else on that day, you can perhaps continue to turn the program on and then at the top of the program I'll announce my subject. If I'm still talking about the Christian family, then it's possible that I could say something about sex during that program. And so if you don't want to hear anything about it, then you can watch the ball game that day. Or if you have children, and certainly you ought to monitor what your children are watching, and certainly see to it that what they are watching is at least basically wholesome. And so you might want to VCR it or something like that ahead of time, and then preview it and edit it so that your kids will hear the part that you want to hear. Then, of course, just like I look out here and see a little child here, people bring their children to a church, and they figure that church is the right place to bring their children, and they're right, but they don't know what I'm talking about. And I can't stop talking about it because I look out and see a little child. A little child's going to learn it somewhere, and they ought to learn it. I believe that if there's any place they ought to learn it, they ought to learn it in church, and they ought to learn it from the man of God, and they ought to learn it from the standpoint of the Bible. If they're going to ever learn it, they couldn't learn it from a better place, in my opinion. But if you have a problem with it, I've already forewarned you, so you can save your time from writing me a letter telling me about what I shouldn't say and this, that, and the other, because I've given you forewarning. If you can't deal with this subject, then you can leave. Okay? What else can I say? Now, we've talked about marriage, a divine institution, that marriage is ordained of God. We've talked about divorce, marriage and divorce. How obligated are you to stay married to your spouse? Then we talked about divorce from what I call another view, from another angle, that was basically based in the Scripture, and I think that it helped some people to get out of the bondage that they perhaps have been in for years, because maybe years ago they got married and then they got a divorce, and they were in a particular religious setting, quote and unquote, that said if you ever get a divorce other than for the cause of adultery, then you can never marry again as long as your used-to-be wife or husband is still alive on the planet. If they're still alive on the planet, then you can't get married again. So a lot of people have gone through life, their youth is gone, now they're older, and their spouse finally died, and they'd like to have a life and have children, but it's too late now to start. And so I believe that could have helped some people to see what God's intent really was, and it wasn't to put us in bondage. Then we talked about the duties of the husband, the duties of the wife, and then we're now talking about the duties of the parents. We've already discussed the duty that we have as parents to teach our children. We talked about that. And then last time we were talking about training a child in the way they should go. Proverbs 22 and verse 6. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, as I said before, and I think it bears repetition, you can't train up a child in the way the child should go unless you know the way the child should go as a parent. I mean, if you don't know it yourself, how are you going to tell somebody else how to get to a place you don't know how to get to yourself? See? And like Jesus said, when the blind lead the blind, they both end up in the trash compactor. In other words, the ditch. So when he tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, that presupposes that the one doing the training also knows which way the child ought to go. And the way the child ought to go is the same way that the trainer ought to go. Now, if the trainer doesn't know which way to go, then you can understand what you're going to have after they get through training a child. You're going to have a replica or a duplicate of the trainer, which could end up being a second disaster. The trainer was the first, now the child will be the second disaster. Okay? So it says, train up a child in the way he should go. Not in the way he wants to go, but in the way he should go. And the way he should go from this perspective is from the standards that God has set forth in His Word. Not the world system method of doing things. But as a Christian, we have the mandate from God to train our children the way thus saith the Lord. If anybody ought to know how to train a child, it ought to be God. He has more kids than anybody else. And just by virtue of longevity, He would know how to deal with children because He's had a longer time to train them than anybody on this planet. So if anybody knows how to train and rear children, God ought to know. He said, train them up in the way they should go. And when they are old, they will not depart from it. Now, I told you last time something that I think is very significant. A lot of people don't understand it, and some may disagree with it, and that's all right with me, no problem. But training, in the context that God is talking about, training a child in the way he should go means to make the child do it. It is not to ask them if they want to, but it is to make them. Now, right away, I said this before, but it's important. Right away, you say, well, you can't make somebody do something. Or there is a way that you can influence folk to do what you want them to do and what they ought to do without ever lifting your hand against them. There are ways that you can influence the children under your jurisdiction to do what you want without abusing them, without ever striking them, as far as getting them to do what you want. Okay? There is a way. And training means make them do it. Trainers do not ask runners and athletes, do you want to practice today? They tell them, you are going to practice or you don't play in next week's game. You are going to practice or you will be relieved from this position on this team. You can find you another job. Now that's what I mean by making somebody do it. See, your employer is making you go to work tomorrow. A whole lot of you don't want. You don't particularly want. You don't even like your job. Most of you don't like your job. Most working people work because of necessity, not because they like what they do. There are only a few of us that are privileged to be able to get paid for doing what we love to do. That is a marvelous thing. Most people work out of necessity. And the man, without laying a hand on you, is going to make you go to work tomorrow. He's going to make you go to work. Because he's holding this over your head. You don't work, you don't get paid. Simple. See, welfare runs out after a while. Unemployment will run out after a while. So the man's got it. He's got it over you. He owns the company, he's got the money. He can outlast you. You can stay out for a while, but you starve while he's eating good. Are you following me? So there are ways to influence people. See? And so when I say train, when the Bible says train, it means make them do it. And you'll have to use the wisdom of God to see to it that they do it. And you know you have to. I gave you some illustrations about it. We have to make our kids do it. You have to make them brush their teeth. You have to make them wash behind their ear. You have to make them take their baths. You have to make them go to bed. You have to make them get up. They don't want to go to bed. You have to fight to go to bed. Then when it comes morning time, they don't want to get up. You got to fight with them to get them, pull them out of the bed. And then you don't have that much time. Don't ever be cramped for time and then try to get them up. That's when they move the slowest. School days, they act like they're under the influence of narcotics. They act like they're drugged. They can't get up. Saturday morning, when you want to sleep late because you don't have to go to bed, and you hope that rascal will sleep late, he's up at 3 a.m. with the TV on. Beep, 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 you know, waking you up at 3 in the morning. Why won't he sleep then? So the thing is, we have to train our children. Now, as we closed last time, I was telling you about my daughter Angela, if you will remember, and the things that I went through with Angela. See, every child is different, and you have to use different strategies with different children. Now, I have 4 children, and each one of them is different. Each one of them is unique, and you have to use a different strategy with each one of them. What will work on one won't work on the other. You can say one thing to Angela, and you'll stop Angela, she won't even bother you anymore. You say it to Cheryl, forget it. It's like you didn't say anything. She just keep right on going. With Stephanie, you don't know. Depending on what it is. I mean, they're all different. And little Fred, he's coming on and he's got his own thing. Well, the thing is, I was telling you about Angela and about going to church. And this is one of the things I want to emphasize this, because Christians, you have the responsibility to train up a child in the way he should go. So the way he should go is towards the Lord. So you have the responsibility to train them up in the things of God. And especially if you have a child that has made a personal acceptance of Christ as their personal Savior, then you have to make them go to church. Make them go to church. If you have to physically, bodily pick them up and carry them, piggyback, you should make them go to church. Now see, now don't tell me you shouldn't, because if you shouldn't make them go to church, then you shouldn't make them brush their teeth. And you have found out, you got enough sense to know that if you don't make them do it, they'll get away without doing it. Then after you tell them 9 times. We just left town here a week ago to go to Miami for the crusade, and Betty left some instructions about something, came right back, and little Fred, it hadn't been done. What he was supposed to do. Told him to do something every day, and came right back, and he looked just like he'd never even seen what she told him to do. You have to stay on them. Well, it's the same thing with going to church. Because, see, especially when it comes to spiritual things, you have an opposition against you. You have a satanic influence that's trying to keep you from it in the first place. See? Now, Satan doesn't even care if you don't do homework. He could care less whether you make an A in mathematics or not. He's not even dealing with that. But you see what a trauma it is to get your kids to do homework. Very few kids, unless there's something wrong with them, that just love to do homework. They just look forward to home. In fact, they go to school for the one purpose of being able to go home and do homework. They love it. They idolize homework. They spend hours on homework. They don't want to look at television. They don't want to have Nestle's Quick. They don't want to have a sandwich. They don't want peanut butter and jelly. They want to do homework. And if you don't let them do homework, they just go off. I mean, they just flip out. Ain't no children like that, are there? No way. Well, can you imagine then the kind of fights you're going to have when it comes to spiritual things? And you got an enemy standing there. Satan and demon forces that don't even want you to learn anything about God. And so, as I said, I made my kids go to church. You see, they're in church now, and I don't make them now. But I believe it was because we did what we were supposed to do. God told us what to do. And we did it. It cost us something, too. It's a trauma. You'll pay a price for making them do what they're supposed to do. But see, God said that if you train them up in the way they should go, when they're old, they will not. He didn't say there's a 60-40 chance that they'll stick with it. He said they shall not depart from that way. And I'm here to tell you that if you don't do what God tells you to do, God is not involved in raising your kids. You are raising them alone on strictly your ability. When you don't do it God's way, He can't get involved. Because there is a biblical law, a biblical rule. It's found, and we're not going to turn to it now, but you can read it for yourself sometime. It's found in Mark's Gospel, chapter 16. I didn't say this last time. It's found in Mark's Gospel, chapter 16, verse 20. And it says that, and God worked with them and confirmed the word with signs following. Now that's God's modus operandi, God's M.O. He confirms His word. I said He confirms His word. So if you're not using His word in raising your kids, God doesn't have anything to confirm in your life. So you're raising them on your own. You look at people and they're in the church, every time the church door flies open, they fly in. Got tape recorders, green, yellow, red, and purple pins to mark the Bibles with. Tape recorders, they're in everything, involved in everything, go to everything. And then you wonder why their kids are running wild. See? And then you hear people say, well, I don't know what's wrong with Johnny. He was raised in a Christian home. Oh? Well, if he was, then God's a liar. Because God said they'll not depart. And see, notice that verse says, when he is old. What is old? What is old? See? You know what old is? Old is the next moment in time from the time where you are now. You are older every minute that you live. You are older than what you were 1 minute before. You ever think about that? What's old? 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80? What's old? God said when He's old, He will not depart. I believe that old means after you've been trained. Minute after you've been trained, you're older. Well, let's bring it down on the level that we can understand. You go in a new car dealership, you buy a brand new car, never been driven. In fact, all the guy did was drive it off that big truck that they bring in, those big trucks that they bring into the dealership on. He drives the thing down the ramp. They take it to make ready, get it all ready, spruce it up, detail it, bring it out to the showroom. You buy the car. For all practical intents and purposes, that's a brand new car. The moment you drive it outside onto the public street, it is considered a used car. You haven't driven it 1 mile. It's not new anymore. It's used. Okay, when is somebody old? The next minute past the minute you're now existing in? That's when you're old. See, we got this idea that it means when they get 99 years old, they won't depart from the way. I guess they won't. Ain't nothing they can do but stay with the word then. 90, what you going to do? Nobody wants you. You can't do nothing. Usually senile and messed up. What you going to do 90 years old? They won't hire you. They've retired you off the job, tell you can't work anymore. You're no good to anybody anymore. You know, that's what society tells you. So what's old? See? So, we have to train our children. Well, I made my children go to church. I had no problem with Cheryl. I had no problem with Stephanie. Like I had with Angela. Angela decided she wasn't going to go. And I told you all of that. But the thing is, the thing that I want to show you, that by sticking to what God said, and it cost me something. I didn't like those encounters I had with Angela. I did not like them. They did not leave me physically feeling the very best. My heart raced. My adrenaline flowed through my veins. My fingertips tingled. My brow was cold and moist with dew and dampness from the perspiration. My respiration was at a high rate. I was just on this side of hyperventilating. It was trauma. It was harder on me than it was on her. But I knew that if I didn't do what God told me to do, He wouldn't be involved in raising my child. And that was my oldest child. She was a pace setter for the younger ones. If I let her get by, ain't no way in the world I was going to get them younger ones to do anything. Because they pull that off on me anyway. We'll tell, well, you let Cheryl do it. You let Cheryl have some cookies. How come I can't have some cookies? They pull that on you. So we went around the mulberry bush, and I told you all the stuff about how she acted and all that, but finally it got down to the point, and I was telling you this as we closed, when we moved over to the other church at Crenshaw Center, over on Crenshaw Boulevard rather, we lived quite a few miles from where we lived. And I started to tell you that I thought Angela was at work and got home late that night, but then her mother corrected me later and said something about she'd gone over to a friend's house or something and was late coming back from there. And when she got home, we had already left because we had to be at church by a certain time, or we had to leave rather at a certain time in order to be at church at the time I needed to be there to teach. She used to run a little book table that we had. We didn't have a bookstore. We just had a room with a table in it and some tapes, and I think we had some books at that time. And so she volunteered to do that on her own. And she left, and it's a long way from, at the time I had said we were living at Washington and La Cienega. It was Pico in La Cienega area. And from Pico and La Cienega all the way down to 9550 Crenshaw Boulevard, if any of you know the city, that's a pretty good trek. And she was just a teenager, but she had such a commitment to that job that she caught the bus and rode the bus at night from over there in the Pico, La Cienega area, all the way down to Crenshaw Boulevard. Now, any of you know about riding buses, you know it takes you about 9 days to cross town on a bus. Yeah, I mean, that's not the fastest mode of transportation, the buses. And I don't know why in the world they call it RTD, rapid transit. Ain't nothing rapid about it. No, that's a misnomer, rapid. Huh? I'm not going to get in trouble talking about it. That's it. Anybody ever ride the bus? Is it fast or is it slow? Well, thank you. Everybody say, rapid transit is not rapid. It is slow. Now, if they're going to get anybody, they have to get all of us. We're all going. We're going to jail together, Brother Charlie. But it's true. No point telling a lie. It's not that rapid. Anyway, she rode the bus all the way from Pico, La Cienega area, all the way down to Crenshaw and Manchester. And I think whatever happened there, the buses changed or something, and she couldn't catch a bus, and she walked from Manchester all the way down to Hardy, where the church was located. See? In the dark. Just a teenager, but she did it because she was committed. But now, how did she get committed? She didn't get committed by me letting her have her own way and doing what she wanted to do, which would have been influenced from Satan to go all kind of crazy ways. I stuck to my guns. I did it God's way, and she came out on top. exactly like God said she would. See, she's older. She was older then when she was working that book table than she was when I told her she had to go to church. See, when she's older, she'll not depart. Instead of departing, she headed for the church. And then my wife also corrected me on this. She said that we suggested, we didn't ask her to quit college, but my wife said, I don't remember us saying that. I thought she made the decision on her own. You tell me, what did you do? Did you quit school on your own, or did your mother twist your arm and tell you you had to? We mentioned the fact that the job was available, but I didn't tell you to quit school, did I? That's what I thought. I didn't tell her to leave college. Huh?
Oh, yes, she did.
Oh, she probably did. Yeah, that's right. She probably did. Yeah, she probably told you. But I did not, because I wouldn't do that. I would never tell anybody to do anything. I never tell anybody to do anything. Because, see, if it don't go right, you'll always blame me for it. I learned that a long time ago. You don't tell folk. You let them make a decision. You tell them what the needs are, then they make a decision. If it don't go right, it's on them. You made the decision. But if I tell you, always want to blame Fred. Fred Price, he's my problem. So anyway, she quit college. She was in college, taking a secretarial business course, business-related course, and she quit on her own. I didn't ask her to, and came to work for me. All of that came out of training up the child in the way she should go. Now she is my executive administrator. She actually runs this corporation. She really runs it. I get the glory, but she runs it. See, she actually runs it and does an excellent job. Not because she's my daughter, but the girl's got some talent. Well, I mean, she gets the talent naturally. What can I say? What can I say? You know, but she does a good job. Well, the point is, all my kids, all three of them are right here. And they're both, the two older ones are married, and both of their husbands are here. All five of my children, 2 son-in-laws and 3 daughters sitting right here, they all work for the church. All work for the ministry. And they do not work for the church because they are my children. See, right away you'd want to cry nepotism. Right off the bat, naturally, see, they work. And some do that. They hire their kids, and the kids make a salary, and all they do is show up on payday to get the paycheck. But I dare anybody, I'll go to court on it, I dare anybody to lodge legitimate, verifiable claims with proof that these children don't work, that all of these that are in my family don't work. We'll go to court on it. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they work. They're not working here just because that's my son-in-law. That man, Michael Evans, that's married to my oldest daughter, he has an excellent work ethic. I believe you came out of the military and then you went to the railroad. He worked for 15 straight years as a railroad dispatcher for Southern Pacific Railroad. I think about the only time you were ever off is when you took vacation or something? Never missed any time off. Took care of his job. He was a worker. I hired him because he got some talents and abilities. Alan Crabb the same way. They're not just working for me because of my son-in-laws. I don't need somebody working for me just because they're my family. I need somebody working for me that's going to do the job. Because I got to sleep. See, I have to go to sleep. And I'm the kind of person, I go to sleep. I don't mother hen the thing. I put people on it, put them in charge of it. I go to sleep. When I go out of town, go on vacation, I'm not thinking about this church. I'm on vacation. Vacation comes from the word vacate. I vacate because I have confidence in the people that I put over till they screw up. And everybody's capable of messing up. But until then, I give you the benefit of the doubt. In fact, I'm very good on it. I give you 900 yards of rope. I mean, I play it out to you for forever almost. Sometimes I wonder if I go too far. But I like to give plenty of proof, let you go as long as you can. So, anyway, the point is, train your children up and they won't give you a heartache. You'll be happy that you did it. It'll cost you palpitating heart, sweaty brow, tingling fingertips, respiration high, adrenaline flowing, but I'll tell you what, it'll pay off dividends in the end that are incalculable. You cannot calculate the dividends. if you do it God's way, because then God's involved with your kids. How many people do you know of? Some of you even may be that. Of course, now, thank God, the grace of God's got a hold of you. But have you ever heard the thing, preacher's kids? They're usually the worst kids in the world. Why? Because the preacher spends all his time saving the world and losing his own family. He doesn't know how to prioritize himself and take care of things. My family was always first. The reason my family is first above this church. Now see, a lot of ministers, the church or their ministry is ahead of their family. And they don't even realize it, that is not right. That's not even biblically right. Because I will challenge you. What came first, the chicken or the egg? No. What came first? Serious. What came first? The home, the family, or the church? Go all the way back to Genesis. All the way back to Genesis. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. The family was instituted before the church ever was. Oh, we know in the mind of God everything was before that. But I'm talking about in point of origin, as far as we are concerned in this earth realm, the family was established before the church was established. God made the family before He made the church. So if you don't have your priorities right, you fool around with the church and let your family go to pot, and then when you do that, you lose your church. You lose it from the standpoint of the kind of influence you ought to have on it. It doesn't have, because they won't say anything. Just like a little child, even when they see the parent do something dumb or make some dumb mistakes, the kid can't afford to say anything because you slap him down because you're the parent, see? So they know better. They don't say anything, but they see when we mess up, and we sometimes mess up, do the wrong thing, see? And so the church's not going to say anything to you, but they're going to sit right in the audience and laugh at you. Mr. Preacher standing up there talking about the Lord and their kids running wild. They won't say anything. They're not going to say anything, but your words don't have that much credibility. Because they say, well, preacher, how come it's not working for you? And that ain't going to never happen with me. If I can't get it to work in my house, I'm not going to try to sell it to you. See, even though what I'm selling to you, whether it works in my house or not, it's still true. What I'm selling to you is not true because it works in my house. But my philosophy is, if it is true, it ought to work in my house. And if it's not working in my house, it's not the fault of this, but it's the fault of this. So I got to get this straightened up first so that it starts working here, so that when I come out here, I don't have to bite my tongue or back off or back down or cower in the corner of the building somewhere for fear you might not accept it. I can come off right off the top of the deck, as it were, and not have to back off, because I got proof that it works. Got the Word, and then I got evidence right here in my own family. And Jesus said, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, so there's one witness, my family, here's a second witness. So I'm right in line with the Word. All right, let's look at the third thing that we ought to do. Provide. Parents, duties of parents. Provide for your children. Turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 12. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Duties of the parent. Provide for your children. Duties of a parent. You don't, if you don't want to do this, if you don't want to provide for your children, you shouldn't become a parent. It's because it's your responsibility. It's a duty, not an option. It's a duty of a parent to provide for your children. You brought them here. You're responsible. You created them. Whether it was in a moment of high ecstatic passion or one of them accidents, them kids are still here. And you are responsible. And the way out is not aborting them. But that's another subject. All right, 2 Corinthians 12, verse 14. Behold, Paul says, the third time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. Now, even though he's talking about a specific thing here, he is still enunciating a truism. He is enunciating a law. Children shouldn't be saving up for parents. Parents ought to be saving up for children. Amen. That's what it says. That's what the book said. Behold, the third time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. I seek you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. Now, Paul was talking here from a spiritual standpoint because he was sort of the spiritual parent of these different churches that he was writing to. He had sort of birthed these churches. He was the catalyst that God and the Holy Spirit used to bring these people at Corinth into the family of God. So he considered them sort of like his children. I feel that way about you. Spiritually, see, that the flock over which the Lord has made me the overseer, I visualize you, I think of you as my children. That's why I don't hold back anything from you, just like I didn't hold back anything and don't hold back anything from my real children. Because I love you so much, I want you to get the truth. I love you so much that I would rather for you to get mad at me and stop talking to me for 4 weeks. But I have given you truth that's going to change the destiny of your life in a proper way. I can take you not talking to me for a week, for you to get upset with me and get mad at me and even talk about me. I know my kids, I know, because I was a child. You get in the room, I don't know why don't parents. You talk about your parents like dogs. Try to kid me, I know about that. Sure you do. You say all kind of crazy little old things, you know, about your parents after they've told you what to do. And I know some of you get me, I don't care what Fred says, I ain't going to do that. Some of you go out and you act ugly, your mouth all stuck out, and you're stepping on your lip every time you step out there, stepping on your mouth. But that's all right. I love you, and I'm going to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Because that's all that's going to help you is the truth. I remember a man, he was the nicest person you ever want to meet. So nice, in fact, that he never said anything that was worth anything. You cannot say anything. You can't say something that's worth something without saying something somewhere where someone's going to take offense at it. You're not going to offend them, but they will take offense at it because they don't want to do it. So they right away will find an excuse. It's got to be something wrong with you because they don't want to do that. So they'll get upset. And that's what your kids do. But Jesus said the truth will make you free. So I believe in being free. I've been bound, now I'm free, and free is better. So I like being free, and I know you'll like it too. Even though it may cost you something and you think you don't want to pay the price now, once you get a taste of the freedom, you'll be so glad you paid the price. You'll be so happy because you'll be running around shouting, free at last, free at last. And it'll be worth it, and you will have forgotten anyway about all the trauma you went through to get there for enjoying the freedom. Are you following me? So we ought to provide for our children. We ought to provide the very best environment that's possible. We should provide a roof over their head. We should provide protection for them in terms of a comfortable home situation. But then there's some other things that are not quite as tangible as that we ought to provide for them. We ought to provide security. We ought to provide love. You know, I think it's somebody came up with it. I don't know who came up with it. I don't know whether a Christian thought about it or not, but I think it's really good. Every once in a while I'll see a bumper sticker and it says, "Has you hugged your kid today?" There's something about a touch from someone that you love and loves you. I can't tell you what it is, but there's something that's communicated. And you need to provide a safe haven for them. You need to provide them with a forum in which they can come and express themselves. Kids have brains and minds just like adults. They think, they have ideas, they hear garbage and stuff that they have to be confronted with day after day at school. They ought to have a home where they can come and sit down and talk about anything they want to and not have to feel like they're going to get slapped down for saying something. And we've always created that. I've created that kind of environment where we could freely talk about everything. We talk at home just like I talk here. Just as open and free. Because I'd rather them talk to mother and father than talk to some friend, because you don't know what they're getting when they're talking to some friend. I know they're going to get the truth if they get it from mother and father. They're going to get the straight. I'm going to tell them the truth. It may hurt them, but I'm going to tell them the truth. Friends will lie to you. Sometimes for advantage, all kinds of reasons. Everybody don't tell the truth. Everybody doesn't tell the truth. In fact, very few folk tell the truth. I mean the whole truth, nothing but the truth. The unmitigated, unvarnished, unpainted truth. I mean the raw truth. Very few folks, they can't deal with it. So you need to provide for them a place where they can come. They don't have to go and huddle up together under the bleachers and talk to their friends about some stuff. They ought to be able to come home and talk. We've always had a free, open environment where they could feel free to come talk to me, come talk to mother, come talk to father, whatever they had to. They had to be afraid to talk. All of that's a part of providing for them. Provide that listening ear. Provide that understanding heart. We have the duty to lay up for our children. I'm always thinking about my kids. They don't know it. But I'm always trying to figure out ways to make their lives better. Don't let me get a hold of $1 million. Don't let me get a hold of $1 million. Once I paid my $250,000 tithe off of it, I have $750,000 left. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with it. But I tell you what, it won't be spent on me. I'm always like, I want them to have it. I'll get mine on the way too, but I want my children to have it better than I do. To have it easier, but have it in the right frame of reference, not so that it makes them lazy. See what I mean? There's a way to do it. You don't cripple them. You don't want to cripple them, but you want to be an assist to them and a help to them and move them on up as quickly as you can. So we need to make provisions for our kids, whatever it costs, and whatever it might be. Education, school, whatever, if that's what they want. I think what we need to be very careful about, and I've been very careful about this, we need to be very careful that we don't put off on our kids all the frustration that we went through because we couldn't do all the things we wanted to do, and then we try to live out those frustrations through our kids. See, I've always wanted to be a big league baseball player, but I couldn't do it. I was frustrated in my attempt, so now I'm going to make my child a big league baseball player. Make them do a lot of stuff that they don't want to do. If they want to do it, fine. Encourage them, give them an environment in which to do it, but let them do what they want to do. Let them find their own level. Don't just try to have them do something because you wanted to and couldn't. Now you're going to make your kid a doctor. He'd be the worst doctor in the whole world. Won't be worth a dime. Because he's not really doing it because that's what his heart's desire is, but Daddy always wanted to have a doctor in the family. Sure, he make a lot of money, but money's not all there is to life. A whole lot of folk making money and miserable as they could be. Amen? Cheryl's a good example of this. I'll use Cheryl as this. It's a good example. This child here, and see, you have to realize, you have to learn how to trust your children to God. And let Him work out and work through them to work out their talents. She was a gifted child in school, in a special class, but she wouldn't do nothing with it. Really, I mean, she wouldn't do what she could have done to it. Fine, no problem. She's always a good daughter. That was more important to me than whether she took some special class. She actually could have been a concert pianist, but she's too lazy to practice. Really didn't want to bother with practice. She was natural. She's a natural. She had, what was the lady, Viennese? From Vienna, a music teacher. She raved over Cheryl. She worshipped almost the ground Cheryl walked on. She said Cheryl was a natural. Cheryl could play anything. Brilliant on the piano. She wouldn't study. Now see, some parents would be so frustrated they'd beat the child to death. make that child give music recitals and all that mess. You know what I'm talking about? And then she would have been frustrated because even though you may have a talent towards something, that may not be your desire. Just because you know how to do something doesn't mean that's your life's work. I can do anything. Now, I'm not bragging. I have an ability. It's got to be God. I can do anything I set my hand to. Anything anybody else can do, I can do it. And I mean do it well. I can do anything. I will tackle anything. I may not have all the special training to do it, but I can do anything. I watch folk. That's why a lot of times I don't do a whole lot of talking other than when I'm doing this, because that's what I'm supposed to do is talk. But when I'm out there, I'm really a quiet person. My family, my wife will tell you, I don't just run off at the mouth and talk. I talk here because this is my job to talk now. But ordinarily, I really don't care that much about talking. But I watch. Like a hawk, I'm watching everything. Anything the electrician can do, he leaves. I ain't going to call him next time. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not going to build a house and do all of that kind of electrical work where you have to get permits and all that. You have to be qualified for that. But what I'm saying, why should I call somebody in to do something I can do myself? I can do anything. I mean, almost anything that I can do almost anything. I'll make an attempt to do it. Just because that don't mean I'm supposed to be a painter. I can paint excellent, paint good. I can paint, you wouldn't even know whether a professional painter had painted. You know, like painting a house. Paint it excellent. I'll do everything. In fact, I do stuff even better than most tradesmen do it. Because nowadays you don't have too many craftsmen. You have people that know how to do work, but they only do work for the purpose of getting paid. They don't really care about the quality of the work. They'll slop up your stuff. They'll mess it up, mess over it, try to hide and cover up stuff just to get paid. I've seen it. You have very few people that are really what you call craftsmen who love their work and take great pride in seeing to it that when they finish their work, that their work is impeccably done. Most people will slop over stuff and then make all kinds of excuses as to why they didn't do it. Well, that's these manufacturers. They just don't make wood like they used to make it anymore. He didn't want to take the time to sand it down like he should have, and then when he put the lacquer on it, had a big bump on it. He's going to blame it on the wood. You know, but he didn't sand it down. So she could have done, but now, and you see a lot of preachers, are you kidding, play the piano? She could have been my pianist in my church. Well, I know preachers, what are you talking about? She would have been playing the piano. But she didn't want to play the piano. We provided the lessons for her while she thought she wanted to do it. And had a very good teacher for her. And we couldn't afford squat doodly, and we got a little old Mickey Mouse piano so that she could practice on that piano. But she didn't want, that wasn't her desire. We didn't push her. She decided she didn't want to take lessons no more. It's fine. That's on her. It's her life. She's got to be happy doing what she's doing. Now, shopping and spending money? Honey, hush. She ought to be a professional spender. She ought to get a job going and shopping and spending. The girl knows how to spend some money. Buy the best, boy, I'm telling you. But, now see, some parents would have a fit. They'd make her play, make her go and take music. She didn't want to. She could have done it. Her teacher said the girl was brilliant. She could play anything if she just set her mind to it. She wouldn't set her mind to it. Well, that's her life. Why should I try to make her do something just because I'd like to have a pianist in the family? That's not fair. That's not right. That's her life. And just because, as I say, you can do a lot of things, that doesn't mean that's your life's work. A lot of people are multi-talented. So we need to provide for them that kind of atmosphere where they can develop and grow, be themselves, and yet we guide them, nurture them, nudge them along, help them, so that at least they make something out of their lives and not just squander all their abilities and talents and end up doing nothing. Are you following me? But we ought to make that provision. And as I say, it includes all the other things like house and clothes and the whole thing. But I think just an atmosphere of love, atmosphere of respect, an atmosphere of knowing they're wanted, knowing they're loved, feeling completely free, not have to want to come home and whether dad's going to be drunk or whether he's going to beat mom. You know, stuff like that. All that stuff means something. Know that somebody's going to be home when they get home. They're not going to have to come home to an empty house. But that somebody's going to be there with tender, loving care. We ought to provide for our children. All right, another thing we ought to do. Turn to Titus chapter 2. Titus chapter 2. Duties of the parents. More than a notion, raising a family, raising a child. It's something raising one, but boy, they have to have several of them. To raise at the same time, that's an awesome responsibility. All right, Titus. Big responsibility being a parent. Titus chapter 2. This one, responsibility of the parents, is to love their children. That's your responsibility, to love. Now, one of the problems you have with that is that because so many parents, watch this, parents who used to be children who were never taught and never loved and never saw love, they can't communicate that to their children. So they end up perpetuating themselves in their kids. Children who don't know how to love, they grow up and become parents who don't know how to love, in so many cases. You see, love, now listen, watch this real carefully. Listen to this real carefully. Love must be taught. Now right away some people, nah, I thought he was all right for a while, but he's gone off now. No. But just stay with me. You'll learn something. Watch this. Titus 2, beginning with verse 1. But speak thou the things which become sound doctrine, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness. Not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. Now let me paraphrase it. Go back to the top of the 4th verse. Let me paraphrase it. That they may teach the young women to be sober, or actually wise. That they may teach the young women to love their husbands. That they may teach the young women to love their children. That's what it's saying. It's saying teach them to love. Now, what has happened? The world system of love is supposed to be a spontaneous feeling, emotion that wells up on the inside of them. And that's how I know I love you, because my heart races when I see that face, those eyes, those lips, those teeth, oh, that body. Oh. The phone's ringing. Oh, I know it's him. I know it's him. Oh, I know. Hello. I love you. 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 Well, I have to go now. Tell me again. I love you. And then you sort of go through the rest of the day. Jane, are you there? Yes. Jane, speak to me. Yes. That's the world system of love through novels, television, movies. And we have this idea that love is an emotion. That's why a lot of you as Christians have a hard time with your other brothers and sisters in Christ. You don't want to associate with certain people. You don't want to do certain things because you don't have that emotional feeling. And so you think you don't love. And I think I have to quit because I just ran out of time. Well, I'm not finished. Stay right where you are. If this message has been a blessing to you, the announcer will tell you some very important information about how you may obtain an audio cassette of the message which you have just heard for your own spiritual enrichment and edification. Remember that these telecasts and radio broadcasts are made possible by the continued free will offerings of you, the viewers and listeners. Remember also these words from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7, "For we walk by faith, not by sight."
This program is now available to you on CD or DVD to share with your family and friends. CD copies are available for your love gift of any amount. DVD copies are available for your love gift of $15 or more for the ongoing support of this ministry. Call the number on your screen or write to Apostle Frederick K.C. Price, Box 90,000, Los Angeles, California, 90009. Indicate the number you see on your screen. Like us on Facebook and Twitter and join us again on the ever-increasing Faith Network, bringing to you the power of faith to transform your life.
No structure can exist without a firm foundation. It anchors and supports everything else that is built upon it. It's the same with your Christian faith. You need a solid foundation in order to grow in the things of God. Dr. Frederick K.C. Price wants to help you with a free book entitled Building on a Firm Foundation. This vital book contains teachings on salvation and what it means to the believer, foundation, the 6 principles of faith, the Holy Spirit and what it means to speak with other tongues, divine healing, the children's bread, and tithes and offerings, God's financial plan. These areas are so critical to building your Christian faith that Dr. Price wants to send you this book absolutely free. That's right, absolutely free. Call the number on your screen or write to Dr. Frederick K.C. Price, Box 90,000, Los Angeles, California, 90009. Building on a Firm Foundation. Call or write today.
Every idle word that men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. So for every inactive, unemployed, lazy, and useless word that comes out of my mouth, I'm going to have to give account of it in the day of judgment. Maybe we should be careful of what comes out of our mouth. Everybody that comes to church isn't dressed like I'm dressed. Sometimes gangsters roll through the church and their hats are backwards and they got t-shirts on and they got khakis on and they got Chuck T's with fat shoelaces in them, and they may be blue and they may be red, and we're judging them, aren't we? The word will go forth and they will be touched and they will be affected and they will leave this place and go to all the other gangsters and get them saved, and then those gangsters will get the other gangsters saved, and so forth. And because Jesus said, do not judge according to appearance, do not judge according to appearance, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment.
Call 1-800-927-3436 or go to faithdome.org and get your copy today.
Wow, that is awesome. Hey, have you visited our website lately? You could be missing out on a tremendous blessing. Visit faithdome.org today and tell us what you think.